She was born in a small town in Slovenia, yet today she commands a life of unimaginable wealth, wrapped in Dior gowns, living in a $60 million penthouse and holding a Graf diamond worth $1.5 million on her finger. This is not just a story of elegance, but of power, silence, and influence. Stay until the end, because one detail about Melania Trump's fortune will leave you stunned. From small-town girl to million-dollar model. In the quiet Slovenian town of Sevnica, a place better known for its factories than its fame, a young girl named Melania Trump lived a life that seemed destined for anonymity. Her family was modest. Her father worked in the car industry, her mother in textiles, and her childhood looked nothing like the golden world she would one day enter. But fate intervened. At just 16, Melania was scouted by a photographer who saw in her something rare, a poised elegance that set her apart. Within months, she was on a plane to Milan, walking for some of the world's most iconic fashion houses. She modeled for Chanel, posed in campaigns for Versace, and stunned the runways for Dior. Each brand added another layer of credibility, and with every cover shoot and catwalk appearance, Melania was building not only a career but a global image. By the late 1990s, her contracts and endorsements had earned her well over $1 million, a fortune that set her apart from her peers in the modeling world. But more important than the money was her strategy. Unlike others who leaned on scandal or notoriety, Melania curated her presence with precision. She avoided controversy, spoke sparingly, and allowed her work and her beauty to speak for itself. Her modeling portfolio included glossy spreads in international magazines, high-end campaigns, and even a 1997 photo shoot with Helmut Newton, the legendary fashion photographer. These moments didn't just elevate her status, they positioned her in circles where power and influence intersected. It was this discipline, this focus on elegance over chaos, that ultimately led her across the Atlantic to New York City. In Manhattan, the stakes were higher, but so were the rewards. Here, Melania mingled with the elite, standing out in a world where attention was currency. Her calculated silence, her selective appearances, and her aura of exclusivity made her more than a model. She was a brand in the making. This was the foundation of the billionaire life to come, a woman who rose from a small factory town to million-dollar contracts, who mastered not just beauty, but strategy. Melania Trump's story began not with wealth, but with discipline, elegance, and the quiet determination to build an empire without saying a word. Common model to mogul if you think her rise was one of the most strategic transformations in modern history. The wedding that defined billionaire excess. In January 2005, Palm Beach became the stage for what many still call the most extravagant wedding in modern American history. When Donald Trump married Melania Trump, he didn't simply host a wedding. He orchestrated a spectacle designed to remind the world of his empire, his influence, and his mastery of turning private events into global headlines. The venue was Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump's private estate valued at over $160 million, transformed overnight into a palace of gold, crystal, and billionaire excess. More than 350 guests, a mix of royalty, Hollywood elites, and Wall Street titans, gathered beneath chandeliers worth more than some Manhattan apartments. Former President Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton mingled with celebrities like Heidi Klum, while power brokers from around the globe looked on. The message was clear: when Donald Trump hosted, the world attended. Every element of the evening was designed for scale. Melania's wedding dress, a Christian Dior haute couture gown valued at over $100,000, was hand-stitched with 1,500 crystal rhinestones and took more than 550 hours to create. Weighing nearly 60 pounds, it required assistance just to help her move. On her finger, Donald placed a 12-carat Graf diamond engagement ring worth $1.5 million, a stone so dazzling it drew headlines across fashion magazines from Vogue to Harper's Bazaar. But Donald's attention to detail extended far beyond couture. Guests dined on beluga caviar, lobster, and crystal champagne, with menus embroidered in satin, each one a keepsake of Trump's obsession with spectacle. The wedding cake stood more than 5 feet tall, weighed 200 pounds, and was adorned with 3,000 sugar roses. Even the entertainment was carefully curated, blending live orchestras with celebrity performers, all to ensure no guest left without understanding they had witnessed something historic. Yet, beneath the opulence was strategy. Donald Trump understood the value of a headline better than anyone else. The wedding wasn't just a personal celebration, it was brand building. The global press coverage transformed Melania overnight from a model into a global figure, and it reaffirmed Trump's place as the master of merging business, media, and personal life into one seamless performance. By the end of the night, Melania had become a Trump, and the world had been reminded of Donald's unmatched ability to command attention. It wasn't simply a wedding, it was a billionaire spectacle, a public declaration that the Trump empire wasn't just about buildings or business deals, it was about power, image, and legacy. The $60 million palace in the sky. High above Fifth Avenue, in the heart of Manhattan, lies one of the most extravagant residences in the world, the Trump Tower penthouse triplex. Valued between $50 and $60 million, this private palace in the sky is more than a home. It's a statement of wealth, power, and meticulous taste. And behind many of its defining details was not Donald Trump, but Melania. The interiors are a deliberate homage to Louis Castor, with every corner dripping in 24-karat gold. Moldings shimmer under the glow of crystal chandeliers, while columns of Italian marble rise like monuments to luxury. Floors gleam with polished stone imported from Europe, and ceiling murals inspired by Renaissance art create the sensation of walking through a royal gallery rather than a modern apartment. It is opulence at a scale designed to overwhelm, to remind guests that they are standing inside a fortress of affluence. Yet Melania's touch is everywhere. While Trump provided the vision of grandeur, it was Melania who carefully directed the finishes, choosing fabrics, overseeing palettes, and insisting on the balance between elegance and spectacle. Security features too were handled with precision. Hidden cameras, reinforced glass, and private elevator access ensured that behind the lavish display was a shield of absolute control. What makes the penthouse extraordinary is not only its size, spanning 3 entire floors, but the way it embodies the Trump-Melania brand. From Roche-Beaubois furnishings to custom Versace fabrics, every detail is a luxury brand designed to speak a global language of power. The panoramic view of Central Park and the Manhattan skyline turns the residence into a throne above the city, a vantage point from which Melania could look down at the empire she helped cultivate. But this was not her only real estate play. Quietly in Slovenia, Melania invested in hidden properties worth over $10 million. These purchases, often overlooked in the shadow of Trump Tower, signaled her ability to think independently, to build a financial cushion that existed outside her husband's empire. For a woman so often defined by silence, these properties spoke volumes. The penthouse was never just a home. It was theater, it was protection, and it was leverage. To step inside was to step into Melania's world, one where wealth was not merely displayed but choreographed, where every wall, every marble surface, and every golden crown molding whispered a single message: absolute control. With the Cadillac vault worth $120,000. When Melania Trump moves through the city, she does not travel like the rest of us. Her vehicle of choice is a custom Cadillac Escalade ESV, a machine worth over $120,000, designed not simply for transportation but for dominance. It is less a car and more a fortress on wheels, a vault engineered to glide silently through New York, Washington, or Palm Beach with understated authority. From the outside, it looks like any luxury Escalade, a polished icon of American automotive power. But beneath its glossy exterior lies a carefully constructed cocoon of protection. Ballistic panels line the doors, creating an invisible armor capable of withstanding threats that ordinary vehicles could never endure. Windows are reinforced with bullet-ristless glass, so seamless that the casual observer would never notice the transformation. It is the art of invisibility paired with the science of defense. Inside, the Cadillac becomes something else entirely. Leather interiors are stitched to perfection, with acoustic insulation that drowns out the chaos of the outside world. A Bose Panarray sound system, one of the finest in the industry, fills the cabin with crisp music or absolute silence, depending on Melania's preference. Biometric locks secure access, ensuring that only those with clearance can enter. It is not luxury alone, it is technology quietly woven into everyday movement. These vehicles are not tied to a single state. Through shell company registrations, identical models appear across multiple cities, ensuring that Melania's movements remain unpredictable. One day, the Escalade slides through Manhattan traffic, the next it waits outside Mar-a-Lago, indistinguishable from others on the road. The strategy is clear. Power in motion should never reveal itself too obviously. Compared to the flamboyance of penthouses or diamond rings, the Cadillac is almost modest, but it speaks to a different kind of wealth, the kind that buys discretion. While a Graf diamond shines to the world, this Escalade whispers in secret. guarding its passenger without needing to boast. For Melania, it is the perfect metaphor. Power wrapped in silence, elegance armored in steel. It is here, behind tinted windows and golden interiors, that Melania redefines what it means to move as a first lady turned billionaire icon. Not loudly, not recklessly, but with the quiet force of someone who knows that true wealth is not just about being seen, it is about being untouchable. Comment Cadillac Vault if you think this armored Escalade represents Melania's billionaire life more than any diamond could. The NFT drop that shook the internet. In late 2021, when the world was still trying to grasp the explosive rise of blockchain, Melania Trump quietly stepped into the digital frontier with a move no one expected. She released Melania's Vision, an NFT collection anchored by a watercolor of her eyes. Unlike most projects that leaned on hype, celebrity interviews, or massive press tours, Melania's launch arrived with silence. No speeches, no red carpet events, only blockchain. The result? In just weeks, her digital tokens generated nearly $200,000 in sales. For context, that figure rivaled the annual salary of many global leaders and underscored her ability to monetize influence in ways far beyond fashion or politics. While others were still asking what NFTs even were, Melania had already converted her brand into digital assets that collectors across the globe scrambled to own. The collection didn't stop there. She expanded her digital ventures with drops tied to historical White House moments, from limited edition digital postcards to immersive artwork reflecting iconic appearances. Each release added another chapter to her growing blockchain portfolio. It was a strategy as deliberate as her modeling days in Dior gowns or her presence inside Trump Tower, highly curated, highly exclusive, and always shrouded in mystery. Her choice of NFTs also separated her from the traditional methods of influence building. While global icons like Kim Kardashian leveraged Instagram endorsements and others like Beyoncé aligned with powerhouse brands such as Tiffany & Co., Melania carved her path in an entirely new space. The blockchain became her runway, and scarcity became her language of power. Beyond the sales figures, the symbolism was undeniable. Melania was signaling that she was not confined to the gilded penthouses or the billionaire limelight of her husband's empire. She was building independent capital streams, digital wealth that operated outside the walls of Trump Tower and Mar-a-Lago. In a sense, the NFT drop was less about art and more about autonomy. Critics called it opportunistic, admirers saw it as visionary, but no one could deny the effect. By blending elegance with technology, silence with disruption, Melania Trump turned a single digital launch into an international headline. It was proof that her brand, polished, selective, enigmatic, was not stuck in the past. It was ready for the future. And like the Dior gowns and graph diamonds that defined her earlier years, Melania's vision wasn't just a product. It was a statement: influence doesn't always need words, it just needs to be owned. America's most mysterious First Lady. When Melania Trump entered the White House, she didn't follow the traditional playbook of America's First Ladies. There were no daily press conferences, no endless public appearances, no eager attempts to charm Washington insiders. Instead, she built power from the shadows. Her silence became her strategy, and her mystery turned into influence. In Washington, a city that thrives on speeches, handshakes, and constant visibility, Melania's refusal to play the game unsettled the establishment. Reporters speculated endlessly. Why was she absent from certain events? Why did she choose to remain in New York for months after the inauguration, ensconced in the $60 million Trump Tower penthouse with Barron, rather than rushing into the East Wing? The decision shocked political analysts, but it also signaled something profound. Melania would set her own rules. Her silence, however, was never empty. It was calculated. Melania communicated through fashion, wielding brands as deliberately as statesmen wield speeches. At the 2017 inauguration, she wore a powder blue Ralph Lauren ensemble that drew comparisons to Jacqueline Kennedy. Later, she stunned in a Dior haute couture gown during a state visit, reminding the world that her presence could command attention without a single word. Even her most controversial choice, a simple $29 Zara jacket scrawled with "I really don't care, do you?" set off a media firestorm that eclipsed entire policy debates. One garment had managed to dominate the global news cycle for days. Alongside this visual strategy, Melania launched her Be Best initiative, a campaign focused on children's well-being, online safety, and the opioid crisis. Critics called it vague, but the program allowed her to carve out an identity that was distinctly hers, separate from her husband's polarizing politics. It was quiet, understated, and consistent with her brand. Influence without noise. Over time, Washington began to understand that her mystery wasn't weakness, it was control. By refusing to overexpose herself, she amplified the power of every appearance, every word, every outfit. She became the first lady who governed not through speeches or soundbites, but through timing, presence, and silence. In an era of oversharing and constant media exposure, Melania Trump redefined what it meant to be visible. She didn't need to be everywhere to be unforgettable. She became America's most mysterious First Lady, reminding the world that sometimes the loudest statement is the one never spoken. Charity in the shadows. For most figures in Melania Trump's position, philanthropy is often a spotlight moment, a chance to showcase compassion in front of cameras, red carpets, and endless press releases. But Melania's approach was radically different. Her charity work unfolded away from the blinding glare of media, deliberately kept in the shadows where intent mattered more than headlines. Between 2005 and 2009, she served as a goodwill ambassador for the American Red Cross, a role that carried weight far beyond ceremonial duties. While other ambassadors might lean on public appearances, Melania committed her time behind the scenes, helping raise millions of dollars for humanitarian causes. Disaster relief efforts, children's hospitals, and veteran support programs all benefited from her involvement, though the world rarely saw photographs of her standing at a podium or cutting a ribbon. That was precisely the point. Melania's philanthropic strategy echoed her broader philosophy: less noise, more impact. For her, generosity didn't need flashing lights. Instead, she directed funds quietly, ensuring that resources reached those in need without the distraction of self-promotion. Insiders recall her making targeted contributions during moments of crisis, from hurricane recovery initiatives to health drives supporting underfunded clinics. While her name wasn't always attached in headlines, her influence was present in the results. Even her personal network reflected this silent approach. Friends and associates described private dinners in the Trump Tower penthouse, valued at more than $60 million, where discussions would shift from haute couture brands like Gucci and Versace to the logistics of channeling donations for hospitals in need. The setting was gilded, but the intentions were grounded. Proof that even in a palace of marble and gold, philanthropy could take precedence over display. Her quiet giving extended to veterans organizations, an area where she believed actions spoke louder than words. Instead of sweeping speeches, she chose to provide backing that directly reached families coping with the after effects of service. It was philanthropy measured not in headlines, but in tangible impact, a style that felt uniquely Melania. Critics often mistake her silence for detachment, yet in reality her discretion was intentional. She did not need the validation of public applause. Her goal was to direct wealth, time, and influence toward causes that would matter long after the cameras turned away. In a world where celebrity charity is often intertwined with brand building, Melania's decision to keep her philanthropy understated became her strongest statement. It reinforced the image she has cultivated for decades: mystery as strength, silence as strategy, and wealth transformed not only into luxury, but also into quiet power. A mother behind the curtain. Behind the glittering penthouses and billion-dollar headlines, Melania Trump carved out her most important role, not as First Lady, not as a public icon, but as a mother. For Baron Trump, life was never meant to be a circus of cameras and headlines. Melania insisted on raising him behind the curtain, where silence, structure, and privacy became luxuries far more valuable than gold. Inside the $60 million Trump Tower triplex, Melania set clear boundaries. Staff were instructed to maintain strict privacy rules, ensuring Baron grew up shielded from constant scrutiny. The boy's world was one of balance, discipline paired with indulgence. Tutors cycled through the penthouse's marble halls, teaching him not just mathematics and history, but languages. Like his mother, Baron became fluent in Slovenian, English, and French, a multilingual inheritance that reflected the international lifestyle of a family spanning New York, Washington, and Mar-a-Lago. Melania's parenting was hands-on in ways many would not expect. She personally managed Baron's schooling, from selecting elite academies to monitoring homework assignments in between state dinners and global appearances. While Donald Trump dominated headlines, Melania quietly built an environment of stability, ensuring Baron's education was never compromised by the chaos of public life. The backdrop for this upbringing was anything but ordinary, from chauffeured rides in armored Cadillac Escalades worth over $120,000 to private flights on jets outfitted with Boeing-level interiors. Barron's childhood unfolded in spaces designed for billionaires. Yet Melania's strict rules meant that even within palaces of marble and fleets of luxury vehicles, structure remained paramount. To outsiders, her silence seemed cold, but to Barron, it was a gift. By refusing to expose him to constant cameras, Melania ensured he would inherit not just wealth, but the ability to move through life with discretion. Her message was clear: true power doesn't need to shout. It endures in silence. Melania Trump may be known for couture gowns and glittering jewels, but her most defining legacy lies in how she raised her son. Behind every Versace dress and every Dior clutch was her mother building discipline, privacy, and resilience into the foundation of her child's future. Comment behind the curtain if you believe Melania's greatest investment wasn't diamonds or penthouses, but the way she raised Barron. From her Cinderella rise as a young model to her billion-dollar lifestyle inside Trump Tower, Melania Trump has mastered the art of influence without words. Her world is lined with gold ceilings, armored Cadillacs, and quiet business moves like NFTs that shocked even her critics. But beyond the wealth, she remains an enigma. Powerful, silent, and always one step ahead of the spotlight. If you enjoyed uncovering the hidden side of Melania's billionaire life, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment your favorite details so you never miss another story like this.